Welcome to Greedy Pig Podcast, where we discuss business with self-made entrepreneurs. Today's special guest is Vinny Sullivano.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Of course, yeah, thank you very much. So Vinny is the founder of Five Rings Creative. So Vinny, if you just want to fill the audience in on exactly what you do.
Yeah, so we do real estate marketing, mainly in Pittsburgh, but we've ventured out a little bit more than that. We've been in business since 2018. I actually started as a real estate agent in 2014. Made a transition in about 2016 to being, I don't know if anyone remembers, Northwood Realty Services. There was a company that was local. They were kind of like 1,500 agents approximately, and I ended up becoming the vice president of their digital marketing. So I was up in the kind of CEO level there, or vice president level there. And what ended up happening was that they merged with Berkshire Hathaway. So why Berkshire Hathaway is so large now is because it was two large companies coming together. And when they merged, I was going to enter into a pit of 50 plus marketing people instead of being one of four, right? So actually making decisions, implementing stuff, getting things done. And it just became kind of a wash. And I just started the business out on my own because I've been helping so many agents. It just kind of made sense. So I've been Five Rings Marketing ever since 2018.
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice. So when you started your marketing, how did you acquire your first client?
So I was doing training for the company, for essentially Berkshire Hathaway at this point, on the company's dime. So I was still employed by them. And I'd made an arrangement with the company of just saying, like, listen, I'm going to be leaving in about a year, so we're going to kind of de-escalate the things that I'm doing inside here, and then I will be picking them up as private clients. That was okay with them. Like, we agreed upon it, and I started picking people out from, doing some coaching, doing some training in-house, and I just kind of moved them over to myself, separate from the overall atmosphere of Berkshire.
Makes a lot of sense. So with your experience in the industry, why do you think most real estate agents have a hard time acquiring leads?
So essentially the idea, and I teach this in a lot of classes, is that with real estate, you don't have a product that you're specifically selling, and you don't just have a service. You have a service for a product. And the product isn't something that you're purchasing regularly. So for most consumers, they're buying every 5 to 10 years. I mean, some of them every 20 years. So you can't really have this kind of like, hey, look, new product launch. Hey, look at this new thing we have. Hey, check this out.
Door, right?
There's no revolving door. So you have to build relationships, and you have to keep that going. And a lot of real estate agents, I feel, just really with the tech boom, so like late 2000s, like 2010, you had Zillow pop up. You had a lot of like lead generation platforms pop up. And it was easier to pay a fee. You get a whole bunch of people who are looking at a website. You get their name, contact information, you give them a call, and it was kind of easy. So for real estate agents now, I mean, I think they're seeing the cost of that is going through the roof. You're having less and less people, especially over the last year, make purchases.
Plus, it seems like there's a lot of competition out there. It seems like a lot of people become, whether they're good or even make a sale, but they're real estate agents trying to become one.
Yes. So I think even in the last, so I was a licensed agent about 10 years ago is when I first got my license. And I feel like there was about 6,000-ish agents. Now there's about 8,500 ballpark. So in the last 10 years, 2,000 people have started. With all of the figures I have, I mean, the classic is true, is like 20% of the agents do 80% of the business, for sure. The difference between someone who's selling $1 million in property, which they're only making about $20,000 gross commissions per year, and then the difference between people who are selling hundreds of properties, there's only like 1,000 agents who are actually selling more than 10 properties a year. Like, it's a big difference.
So it seems like your services are kind of just, everything's included, like full stack, like, you guys even, believe post for them.
Yes. Yes.
So I was walking through your website last night. So tell us a little more about kind of the process. Say you get a client, or they, agree to it, or even before that, like how do you kind of talk through once you get someone on the phone or messaging with you?
So I think, how it first started is we were mainly doing graphics, and with marketing in general over the last 10 years, but especially social media, it has changed. Every 3 years, it's completely different than it was the 3 years prior. I think just with the pandemic, you saw the rise of TikTok, you saw the rise of like short form vertical video. I mean, that wasn't there 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it didn't exist, right? So since I've been doing it, I think we've just changed our paradigm 3 different times, to where now we have to offer video, we have to offer short form video, we have to offer a vast array of all of the marketing that's out there. And it's only because the way that the engines change, it just changed so frequently that if we're not offering everything, you miss something, right? And
For
if you miss
sure.
something, you're missing the whole thing.
Plus, like you said, with the different phases, one new thing pops up. Well, now you got to add that to your service, right? So,
Yep.
Yeah, that being said, are there certain platforms that tend to perform better than others, or do you notice a change as time goes on?
So I would say for real estate agents, it's kind of the duh moment in a lot of classes that I teach. But honestly, where they can find the most leads is probably still Facebook, which is strange. But that's where the vast majority of their homeowners that are in their 40s to 60s, 70s are at. That's who they want because they're going to be able to sell their current home, which is probably a decently valued home, buy a new home like a patio home or downsize. So they're doing 2 transactions. That's probably where the most of people are. I do think TikTok has totally revolutionized everyone's marketing, even like real estate agents. I think before we were just talking about a little bit YouTube. YouTube is amazing for a place to actually, because it's just wide open. So I think for an agent, if they jumped onto YouTube, YouTube is highly connected to Google. So now if you're searching for areas, you're searching for properties, you're searching on Google,
and stuff, yes.
you're immediately clicking into YouTube as opposed to like kind of circling around there. I think really just in general, I like to put my people onto Instagram first because that's usually the place where they're not really thriving. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like if you can master Instagram and if you can do really well on Instagram, you can also usually do well on TikTok. You also kind of have the benefit of getting the down feed if you're pushing things to Facebook. Like it's just a good middle place to kind of be.
That makes sense, yeah. I mean, we even see with like ads and stuff, Facebook still seems to be one of the best. And plus, I feel, and I think George does too, like shorts are great and stuff like that, but that's more for like engagement, not so much leads.
Yes.
So it's you might have 1 million views on TikTok, but if you get 0 leads from it, like, is it even worth it? Kind of, but like you'd rather have the lead almost.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with real estate is that, again, so if you just took the top 100 agents in Pittsburgh, I would say maybe 40% of them have a abysmal social media presence. I mean, it either doesn't exist or it's barely there, or they'll put one photo out that's poorly cropped or something every 3 weeks. It's just not there because the way that they've been getting their business is by direct referrals, by doing mailings, by doing, all of these other things that they've been doing for.
They just have this clientele that's just,
that
now that's
generates
on autopilot.
referrals.
Yeah.
Yep. It's on total autopilot. And even if you were trying to identify like a system, like a tech system, there's no real tech system. It's just they have good team members that are working leads. You have people who are actually talking to people. I think some of the best agents in Pittsburgh actually do call people still, like truly, which is, if you were talking to someone and they're like under 30s, they'd be like,
I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. Like, why do I have to do that? So it's just very, it's very different. And it's kind of like a, I would say a little bit of a, I don't know how to say it, like kind of like a misnomer that if you're all over social media, you're going to get leads. Like you might not at all. You might get tons of engagement and you'll get no one who actually wants to work with you.
Yeah, well, that personal touch can make a big difference to like the phone call, because it's kind of a big thing, selling or buying a house, right?
Yes.
So you want that relationship. So speaking with them in person or on the phone can definitely make a difference.
Yes.
So that being said, when creating this content for your clients, is there a specific framework that you use to try to make sure you attract more leads than just, say, views?
So for sure. I think the idea is that nowadays, like, first off, if I partner with the right agent, things just click, right? So if they're naturally creative, but maybe they just don't have like the tech aspect, like they don't want to edit their footage, they don't want to put things together, but they're just ideas, like running. That is who I'm going to work with the best. And then we'll just talk for 5 minutes and we've already come up with 10 different ideas. If I have my gear with me, we're already filming at that point. I mean, it just moves, right? With some of the agents that we work with, it is a little bit of a slow process. So for the first month, it's just, okay, let's brainstorm for a while. Let's talk about a couple of video ideas. I'll show them some samples of either people I've worked with or people just around the country, what they're doing. A lot of times that all gets shot down because I think that just being on video is very uncomfortable for most people. Like, so if you're just,
if
here's
you've never
the camera,
done it, yeah, especially like if you show up and I think you say like in the first couple of days we're shooting,
let's go.
It's like, well, hey man, like let's slow down.
Yes, that's exactly it. And again, like real estate agents, they didn't get into the video business, so like it's only in the last 4 years that it's like now you need to have a camera in your face as much as humanly possible, right? even with cell phones. If you were an agent that's been around for 10 plus years, like you maybe didn't even have a cell phone. Like it's just a very different thing. So I do feel like, again, it's more of a process of like, depending on who the agent is, we'll first talk to them just about like, okay, here's some content that we can shoot. What's your comfort level with it? If anything, I feel like even if they have no content whatsoever, then even if we're putting out boring stuff, quote unquote boring stuff, you're going to generate some interest because now all of a sudden you're showing up. And if you're comfortable talking about the boring real estate stuff, even if it's for 15, 30 seconds, I can kind of like work you into doing the fun stuff, the engaging stuff.
Plus,
the
you get your feet
stuff.
wet, right?
Totally. So yeah.
Makes sense. So when you were an agent, what did you like and then dislike about the real estate business?
So I think the thing I liked the most was probably it was really engaging with the client. So having, again, like we said before, it is the biggest purchase you're going to make in a 10-year window at least, like for sure. And I feel like, even speaking to real estate agents, the home is the beginning and end of everyone's life. Like you wake up there, you go to sleep there, everything good, bad, and ugly happens usually inside your home. Like there's just so much stuff that goes into it. So being a real estate agent and like working with, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, working with people who were making their first purchase and like, the wife is expecting and like they have all these plans and you can just see like this like joy. That was amazing. I also am a little bit of a tech nerd. So at the time, this was like 2014, 2015, there was a lot of really interesting tech that was coming out that I was able to implement in my own business that helped me grow. The downsides of real estate is, I essentially stopped working at a job where I was working 12 plus hours a day. I was an addiction counselor for about 7 years before that, which is a complete different turn than real estate. But I was working 10 to 12 hour days for very little money. People, it's high stakes because now you're dealing with people's lives. Like there was once a week, there was a patient dying because they were overdosing. This was even pre-fentanyl. So, it was still terrible then. Now it's even worse. So I think just the overall high stakes of real estate also is kind of a detriment when like you are up at 10 o'clock at night and the buyer wants to back out because of outlets or something that's like, and then now all of these other plans start falling apart because outlets or something small. Like, so the risk reward of it, the downside of it was just very intense. Real estate is very intense.
It does seem like it's high
stress. For sure. And especially if you're doing a lot of work, it's high stress at scale.
Yeah. Try to juggle all these clients.
Yes, and there's always going to be a problem. Things are never as smooth as they always want to be. There's just always something that's going to go on. So I had a blossoming family at the time too, so and I was just kind of savvy with tech and social media, so that was why I made the transition to being part of like the executive team. I was doing more of a 9-to-5 job. I still loved what I was doing because I was teaching technology. So I guess the downside really was just the stress level.
That makes sense. So with your current role now, I know you do a lot of organic posts and content for your clients. Do you also do paid advertising services?
Yes.
And how does that work?
So the paid ads, typically, now you have to have video content. So if you're strong on video, then that's what I'm going to naturally try to push you into doing. We've done a lot of like just, YouTube in-stream ads, just like kind of skippable stuff. The cost for it's pretty low. So compared to like a lot of other advertising platforms, again, if they're doing well with video and we're doing paid ads, especially through like YouTube, they are seeing moves to their website like they hadn't never seen before. And it's really just, it comes up as kind of a talking point at the very beginning. And then once we work with someone for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, that's when I start saying like, listen, how much are you paying into Zillow? Okay, well, here's a breakdown of how much your ads would cost on these specific platforms. It can match Zillow. Let's see if we can run it for 2-3 months in the season.
Get that cost down a bit.
And see if it works. If it doesn't work, then stick with your Zillow. You're already paying $1,500 a month for Zillow.
Is that what it costs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did not know.
For even a small market share, you could, if you went into, and it depends on the area, but if you took like a Bethel Park, for you to have less than 10% of the market area, it would be $1,200 to $1,500.
Yeah, so how does that work for those watching at home that aren't familiar with the real estate process? So Zillow is like an aggregate that collects all the contacts, and then from there you can buy the list?
So essentially, it taps into the multi-list. I think the main, you as an agent, there was a lot of touch and go with a lot of the brokerages every year. So as of right now, I think all of the brokerages have a semi-mutual understanding of that they have to have their listings on Zillow. So they'll share their listings onto Zillow for people to see. Smaller brokerages, like if you were a 1 or 2 man operation and you just had a broker's license, you might not even share your stuff onto Zillow, or you would have to do it manually. Okay. So every time you get a listing, you'd have to upload everything into Zillow, go through the whole process. For most agents, if you're in a big brokerage, as soon as you put it on the MLS, it goes out to Zillow. It just sends data through the IDX, and it's there. In terms of lead generation, a lot of it is just based off of, consumers, and I tell agents this, and it's unfortunate, but consumers go to Zillow. There's just no getting around that.
I like Realtor.com.
See, you are one of the rare. I think Homes.com is making a big push to kind of change things and shake things up. Why do you prefer Realtor.com?
I don't know, to be honest. I think that's the first one I started using, so just kind of have it. Yeah, pretty much. Nice. But they are pretty much the same. So.
Well, yeah, it's all sharing IDX portals, etc. I think just really with Zillow, it was a good branding because it's completely unrelated to it's Zillow. It's just it has that pop to brings people in. And it wasn't Realtor.com. So if you're a consumer who's shying away from I don't want to work with a realtor because they're
that's a good point.
Liars, they're cheats, they're like all of the other things that realtors get I guess.
It has some whimsy to it.
It does. It does. It absolutely has some whimsy to it. And it's just, it brings people in. And, the idea is that if you are an agent and you're doing really well in terms of your overall business, you probably do pay for Zillow leads. Let's just be honest. Whether they convert overall, I would probably say it's less than 10% of your leads that come from Zillow actually convert.
Okay, so I'm a realtor. I want leads. I go to Zillow. I guess I buy a list of these leads. Then how do I convert those into clients?
You would have to use all of your classic sales tactics. There is essentially, when you do get a lead through Zillow, it depends on what level you're paying for. And this has changed actually in the last 6 months. But originally in the last couple of years, you would get a phone call from Zillow and they'd say, hey, I have Adam Smith on the phone. They're looking at 123 Main Street. You would answer the phone, you take the lead, you get transferred over to them, and then that's it. You would follow up with them naturally. If you talk to them that time and then they ghost you, that's up to you and your systems to kind of follow up with that and keep things going.
It's on you now.
It's on you. It's just like a regular old lead. They have changed into this big flex program, which is now you're not paying up front for Zillow leads. You actually have the ability to pay at closing. So you'd pay a certain percentage of your commission to Zillow at closing. But that also means that you now have to report and update to Zillow how these leads are actually working.
Yeah, do you know if they have a way to validate that on their end?
I don't. I don't. I mean, and there's been tons of other systems that have been like that for years. So that's not a new concept in terms of real estate. I think people shied away from it because no one really wants to report every single thing that they're going for. A lot of real estate agents are very paranoid about their data being stolen by either the brokerage or by a larger company. You're going to take my clients and you're going to resell them to other people, things like that. But the overall is, again, if you're paying $1,500 a month, if I was a new agent starting today, you couldn't do that. You can't afford $1,500 a month to get leads. You'd have to find creative ways to actually drive business to you. Maybe that's starting a YouTube page and really finding a good place to jump into. That could be, maybe you do have that personality to just have good short form video. Maybe you're jumping on to just local events, local stuff. There has to be kind of your niche that you're jumping into and you're doing really well in.
And that's where he comes in.
Yes, that's it.
Expiring real estate agent. Hit him up.
And, again, I was saying even before, the paradigm of the business has shifted so many times, just even in the last 5 years, is that now, with newer agents, when I get them, that's who I like working with because I like seeing things really change. They're completely flexible in what they're doing. They're open for anything.
I said probably they're trying to soak up everything you can give them.
Yes. I remember when I was an agent, anything that anyone was saying to me, I was intently listening and applying to what I was going to do. And that's what worked. Right. Mm-hmm. And then, but the idea is that I can't do a lot of this videography. I can't do editing for them. I can't create content for them for $100 a month because they don't have enough money because they just started out in the business. Sure. So it's this kind of catch-22. So I do a lot of coaching for newer people. I keep my costs really low for coaching. I only charge $50 an hour.
Is that coaching for the marketing or for like actual real estate stuff?
Not for actual real estate sales. There's plenty of real estate coaches. Like, here's how to do your business. Just for marketing. So we'll do, if we meet once a week, we'll go through whatever posts that they've done over the last week. We'll kind of analyze them. We'll break them down of like, okay, well, how could we have done this a little bit differently? How could we have done this better? Hey, look at the couple things that I've seen over this last week. Here's the trending thing. Do you want to try that out this week? Stuff like that. Just simple.
So do you see organic content ever surpassing Zillow over the next 10 years when it comes to generating leads?
No.
Just as another supplement, another channel?
For sure. I think, the beauty of social media that I think is the misnomer is you can build relationships on there. So if you are an authentic person, and authentic can be a very wide degree of what it is, but if you're just a person and you're likable, you're generally positive, you're realistic, you're a person that they can relate to, you're going to do really well because it's a relationship driver.
Pretty much, you're right. So I saw that on your site, you say, you have a questionnaire that they fill out before you start working with them. It's like 35 questions. So,
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious, what type of questions do you ask for that type of stuff?
So I think the best anecdote I have is that, it kind of touches on, even just simple, like we have 5 questions just about like what kind of brand styles you like. So, do you want to keep your brand colors? Do you want to change them? What kind of color palette? Do you like, what kind of shapes do you like in your branding? Do you like things rigid and square? Do you like kind of like a funky design? Just basic branding stuff. But the really interesting thing is we have about 20 questions that's all about them, their personalities. The easiest thing that the reason why we started it actually is because we had gotten a client who they live in Pittsburgh. They're a working agent in Pittsburgh, but they're actually from Ohio. Typically, Steeler season, when it's a Steeler game, if we're just putting something out on Sunday saying go Steelers, or it's just general kind of blah content, but at least it's there, right? We almost posted a go Steelers post for an agent who has been a lifelong Browns fan.
Uh-oh.
And can you imagine what would have happened if that would have actually been posted and they didn't? Because we'll send the content to them. We'll say, like, hey, check this out. And they go like,
Yeah.
He was like, dude, I don't like the Steelers. And he was just like jaw almost on the floor. So now we have like all these personality-based questions. That is like, one of them is just like, who are your favorite sports teams? Do you have a meme collection on your phone? Because if you have no meme collection on your phone and then I start posting memes on your content, you're going to look at me like, who did I just hire? Why are they posting these childish things on my very professional
Just trying
marketing
to get
avenues?
more depth of how who they are and what they like.
And everything's going to filter into the overall content. And we're trying to make the agent seem as personal as possible and less like an agent as possible, if that makes any sense.
It kind of goes back to that, being genuine, right? Kind of
Yes.
seems you're trying to figure out how to make them seem as genuine as possible.
And we always ask, any one of our clients will ask them, like, we'll do like all of the, we'll do the videography, we'll do some of like the graphic posts, et cetera. But we always we essentially encourage them, like, take your own photos, take your own videos. If it's a family event that's going on, like, take photos at the family event. Like, you don't have to post them. We'll post them for you. We have a big Google Drive that people can share stuff into. Most people have Google-based accounts, so they know how it works, so it's easy for them to do it. And then we'll go through and we'll post the things that you want to post. We have a team of 3 now, so we always have someone that's kind of on deck that's like, okay, hey, go share so-and-so's thing to their personal feed. Go share this to their personal feed. We use Slack for just communication between each other.
I like it a lot.
It's amazing. It's game-changing for us. And it's just it's blending the idea of, the traditional digital marketing kind of concepts with like just being a relatable human being. And the more relatable you are as a person, the more likely you are to get the referrals, get business, get just like your stuff shared in general. No one shares real estate stuff to other than real estate agents sharing it amongst themselves.
That's a good point.
And that's I think if you looked, I have a very unique view of the real estate industry because I'm mainly following real estate agents on social media. So like I still have my friends and other people that pop up, but like the vast majority of my feed is just real estate if you scroll through it. But for 99 of consumers out there, that's not the case. Like they never ever see real estate content because they're not looking at Zillow.com. They're not looking at mortgage applications. They're not doing any of the things that fill the data to actually start promoting these organic pieces, paid ads, etc., because they're just not looking at real estate.
Well, if they do see one and it's boring, they're going to scroll right past it.
They're going to scroll right past it. It's just, it doesn't matter.
So from you seeing so much real estate content over the years, what's the number one thing you see agents doing wrong with their content?
I would say being, and this is strange, but I would say trying to be too trendy and too perfect. Too trendy or too perfect. If you are an agent and you're constantly putting up like the newest trend, how much time are you spending doing the other work that's actually necessary? How much work are you actually spending on building relationships if you're just trend chasing over and over and over again?
So what would an example of one of these trends be? Are you meaning like maybe like a viral song or something like that?
So I think recently, maybe the last like month or so, the biggest trend I've seen is you're opening your video up with a fail video. Have any of you seen that?
In the past, yeah, I believe so.
So you'll see like the first 2 seconds are like, it's one of those videos that you would watch on like Fail Army or Fail YouTube kind of clip, right? One of the biggest ones was there's a person that was riding a motorcycle and they're doing a wheelie and then they hit a hole and they like fall off of their motorcycle. And then you stitch that with you doing a roll and then saying like, if you're looking for real estate, call me today. So it captures your attention because you're like, hey, I remember this guy falling. And then you're like, real estate agent asking you for business. That is the biggest trend that we're seeing now. There's people that have really done it well, and it's like super funny. There was another one going around where there's someone in some other country cutting a watermelon, and they like cut the watermelon and water shoots out in the original video, and then the video that it's being stitched to is these agents are getting soaked with water, and they're like, if you're looking for real estate, you call me at 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of stuff. So it is this kind of pairing between like you're trying to generate this interest immediately because you know that if it's just you saying, why don't you call me to buy it?
No one's going to look at it.
No one's going to look at it. So it is, I mean, again, if your trends are great, but like, do they actually drive real business? Probably not.
Plus, I feel like it would go off their brand, right? Like, if you're trying to do these trends, it's probably going off what you have been doing that's probably somewhat been working, right? So you kind of just abandon that for this new thing.
Yes. And I mean, if you think about the clientele, like most of my clientele is females that are over the age of 45. So are females who are over the age of 45 going to be doing somersaults in their front yard to like pair to this video? No. Are they going to be jumping around and like dancing? No. Like it's just not something that you're going to see. So we try to find what works in terms of trendiness to fit whatever they're going to be without making them look like, are you really trying too hard? Like this is too much. So it's going to be all their comfort level.
Yeah, that makes sense. From a buyer's perspective, I feel like if I saw somebody, say, doing a somersault and saying, I'll buy the real estate to a funny video, that wouldn't really incentivize me to want to do business with them. I would rather go with somebody that's seems like they're able to educate me on the area or have some expertise, but everybody's different, but I just don't see the appeal of say dance. I could see it getting more views, but I don't see that translating into real estate skills.
Your qualified buyers go way down when you post something like that, because like you said, how much confidence are you gonna have in that person?
For sure.
And they can be incredibly intelligent, but them posting that just kind of like, oh, that's a little strange.
And
right?
and I don't want to poo-poo on the people who really do it well. Because there are people who are in real estate that are incredibly entertaining and like watching their videos, you will just get sucked in because they have this dynamic but then they're even like that in person.
Well, that's the thing.
Would be
like
the center of
being,
attention.
Genuine, right? If you're that kind of goofy, funny person, well, that would make sense for you.
Yes.
But if you're this serious, person, it makes 0 sense.
0 cents. Totally 0 cents.
So out of the real estate gurus out there, are there any ones in particular that you look to that you think are doing a very good job with their content?
I think now, anything that's coming from Broke Agent Media is amazing. What I think the big difference is that with Broke Agent Media, they're really trying to, like, it's humor based, right? So that's gotten me already. And they really do farm a lot of content and things from real estate agents. So they're out there actually working with other agents who are really, good in their field, and they're creating content that is always kind of upping the bar and like what's going on. I think for like a gold standard for real estate, just branding in general, is probably Ryan Serhant. He is just...
Is that a guy from Million, was it?
$1 Million Thing. Yep. He has a new book. It's called Brand It Like Sirhant. And I mean, the book is it makes such clear sense, like in terms of like, and again, just having the real estate industry background, I'm able to kind of connect with more of the things that he's saying. But for any business, any brand, like what he's putting out there is like, oh, wow, duh. Like, why didn't I think about that? For years, I think it was, it was Gary Vee. I mean, that was like from like 2013 to like 2016, 2017, it was Gary Vee was like the gold standard of what was being said and what to do. Nowadays, even Jason Pantana, he's part of Tom Ferry's coaching staff. He's like their marketing coach. A lot of his advice is incredible. I think it's just very practical for a real estate agent. And you have to think is that, again, real estate agents are salespeople. Like that's, in essence, especially the good ones, like their strongest suit is going to be sales. That's personal connection. That's like following up. That's just making sure that they're kind of systematized in whatever system they use. They're not strong marketers. Like most real estate agents are not strong marketers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it's just not part of what's needed. And then especially in the last 4 or 5 years, houses sell in under 24 hours with 3 photos. Like people are buying houses sight unseen.
Oh, like especially during pandemic.
So your bar for marketing, going into it, like if you were starting as a new agent, there's a million classes that are teaching you how to be trustworthy and honest and how to negotiate and how to sell, personal connection. But there's like a 30-minute class on marketing. And it's usually just like, use our in-house tools. Like what is that?
It's good for your business, I'm sure.
It is. And that's what we kind of capitalize on is just like, okay, like everything that you already learned, like forget about it because it's probably already outdated, right? If you're using the same tools that are already in the brokerage, that means that they're built to scale. They're not built to actually connect and convert. So it's just like a graphic, which is easy to create at scale. So 100 agents can do it in a click. But then again, if you're thinking like a salesperson, are salespeople even going to take the 20 minutes to go onto the system, log into 3 different portals to get to the system, to then create the thing, to then push it out there? Like they're just not.
That's not the type of people, yeah. So do you see more people like with your clients? Are they more just doing the coaching or the full service?
So it just depends on where their level is in terms of their business. So, I mean, if they're doing over $10 million of transactions a year, like they're just paying for the full service. So we will just deal with top to bottom, whatever they need. We have great graphic people, so we're able to even create like flyers. So if they have a big listing coming up and we know about it ahead of time, usually they'll get photos like a week or so before. We can take some of those photos. We can create better looking flyers for them. We can have the social media posts. I would say for the newer agents, it's definitely coaching just because it's affordable and it makes the most sense practical wise. But we have, right now we have like 10, well, now we have 9. We have 9 clients who are doing over $10 million a year in real estate. A lot of them are, they're comfortable with video, but they're not like, I love video. I want to do it all the time. So I think as we continue to grow, I really want to push into the direction of like connecting with people who are already creatively inclined, or at least they're just like, I am humble enough to just be silly on video and just be okay with whatever it looks like. And just like, I'm just myself and I'm not trying to, filter myself or gauge myself or, as soon as the camera turns on, they go, oh, and like the eyes like light up and they're like,
yeah. Well, I think it's smart that you have the coaching, one to make income, but also that's like potential lead generation for your full service business. When they get to that next level, they already have that
for
trust and they're like, oh, his tips are pretty good. Let's hire him full time.
For sure. And again, like, if I'm a lot of my clients come from me doing teaching because I'm a pretty strong teacher and I'm able to relate the marketing side of it to real estate really well. Recently, I told you earlier, I do like a lot of like continuing ed class for the state. I do it locally. I've done it, online for the state. But I recently just did a small speaking engagement on essentially consumer trends, and this was for loan officers, and it was the biggest bomb I've ever had in my entire life. I felt immediately uncomfortable, and I've been speaking on stages for like 300, 400, 500 people, and like I'm fine. If we're talking about real estate, we're just talking about like marketing, I'm cool. As soon as I started talking to loan officers And loan officers are very different people than a real estate agent are, right? They're usually like quiet, they're reserved, they're education focused, they are numbers people, they are not people, right? So all of the, the little bits that I would do, the jokes like would fall flat. So within the first 5 minutes, I went from being like, normal skin tone to blood red. Then to 10 minutes, I was like pale white. I was just looking around the room and it was not working. And I felt like, this is definitely the biggest bomb that I've ever had in front of 100 loan officers, which could have been a whole new level of business, right?
Sure.
And I think that just because of having the big bomb, and I mean, I did the presentation okay. Everything was fine in the end. It's not like I, passed out or anything on stage. But am I going to be working with loan officers from that company anytime soon? Probably not. It just didn't translate well. So I feel like, growing, I really just want to find real estate agents specifically and brokerages that are really kind of open to the idea of doing some different kinds of marketing and looking at video in a different way and really being, creative behind the scenes. I think one of the best things that I'm most proud of is I did a parody video of the Sopranos intro for a real estate agent here. Jerry Irwin, it was right when the pandemic started. So literally we'd filmed it in the early March of 2020. We had it done on the 19th. We were going to promote it on the 24th of March, and then everything shut down on the 23rd. And so we put the video out there and no one could even do business at all. But we did a shot for shot copy of the Sopranos intro using him and shooting it around Pittsburgh.
That's pretty cool.
And it was just now looking at it and watching it again, I'll periodically just watch it. And I was like, that was
awesome.
That was awesome. And and Jerry was so cool. And he was just he was like, I want that. And I want to do it. And whatever it takes, let's just do it. I'm really interested. Let's do it. And, that is a hard sell to tell a real estate agent hey, let's do a mob TV show intro parody. And most real estate agents would be like,
I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. No way. So I am just looking for people who are just
have
to be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So just to take a step back away from real estate, what advice would you give to somebody that's interested in starting their own digital marketing agency?
I would say listen more because most of the time I think marketers just in general tell people a lot of things, but they don't really listen to their clients. I would also tell people to just, be forgiving to yourself as a creator because the bar is always changing. And I think that anyone who has any, if you have really good design skills or you have really good creative skills, you probably are lacking in the business side of it, right? So you're maybe not a strong salesperson. And if you're a good salesperson, a good business person, you probably are lacking in the creative side of it. It's hard to really be very good at both, right? So I would definitely tell anyone that's starting out is just be forgiving to yourself because you're going to make mistakes. Your designs, you're always going to look at your designs like they're terrible. You're always going to judge yourself harsher than anyone else is going to judge you. That's just part of being a creator. I think any painter, if they paint something, they usually are it's not done.
It could be better, yeah.
It could always be better. I could just do this. I could do this. So just be patient with yourself and just be forgiving to whenever you do feel like you mess something up, forgive yourself. Move on. Find something else to create.
Yeah. Try something different next time, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So even just with entrepreneurship in general, what advice would you give to somebody that's just starting out? They want to start their own business and, they're getting pushback from family, friends, and nobody's really believing in them. How do you overcome those sort of obstacles?
I would say, number one, openly listen to what everyone's telling you, right? I do feel just in terms of entrepreneurship, there is always this, from entrepreneurs, oh, forget what everyone's saying. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Trust your gut. Sometimes your gut is wrong and you just are winging it and maybe that might not be the right thing. So you always want to be open and present and listen to what's going on and what people are saying to you feedback wise. But always have the ability to then step outside of yourself and then look at what are your real goals in this? What are the real, obstacles that you're actually going to face? What are your own liabilities? What are your own shortcomings? What are the things that you're going to have to deal with? Because inevitably you do. But again, I mean, just, be open to the criticism, be open to the negative feedback, but then work it out in your head. Be patient.
Yeah, so growing up, did you ever think you were going to be an entrepreneur, or is it something that just kind of happened?
Yes and no. I was always very anti-authority. So anyone working a 9-to-5 job was never going to be in the cards for me, because if you're telling me what to do, I'm not doing it just because. That was always part of what I did in school. I was a terrible student. I would do always the rebel. But I was very charismatic, so all the teachers would like me enough that they'd say, "Hey, Vinny, we're getting to the end of the grading period. Here's the giant stack of papers that you need to complete so you can be able to get a C and just be okay." And I'd say, "Okay, thank you so much." And I would do it all. And my father also, he worked in the Federal Reserve for many years. And then in like the mid 90s, he started his own business. It was in New York. He started his own business. It was actually really interesting. It was like window treatments and like blind cleaning and like cleaning window treatments, which was like a luxury based kind of business. Like the business model is not for Joe Schmo, right? That is very different nowadays. Like the business would not last because now you have just very disposable stuff. So even people who are buying luxury things, like they buy semi-disposable luxury window treatments, they know they're just going to change them out in 2 years. So he did, like, he was always kind of entrepreneurial minded. He also was never really one for being 9-to-5. So I had the blueprint, but he didn't sit me down and like tell me like.
You just kind of saw it.
I just saw it, and I just kind of played into it over time. But obviously, based off of my past behaviors, I was destined for it, clearly.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people don't realize that being a real estate agent is being an entrepreneur as well. It's not like, I think people think you just sign up to be a real estate agent, then you magically start getting leads and sales come your way.
Yes, real estate, and I think every real estate coach would say this, is that real estate is like intro level business. Like you don't really know, you can know just enough to do well in it, but in terms of really managing a business, there's not that many agents that are in Pittsburgh that truly manage it like they would manage any other actual business, right? I mean, even if you're thinking of the infrastructure, you are brokerage run. So if you're part of any large brokerage, like that's the business, is the brokerage. It's not you. Like you are a part of that. Like, yeah, like you're a shareholder, like you're part of it. But like, so it's this weird mix of like, if you are truly an entrepreneur, you would have your own brokerage. Do you see what I mean? Like you would step outside of that, or you'd be in a non physically based, you'd be like in an EXP or a real brokerage or like one of the other brokerages that really allow you to be a true entrepreneur. And it's not telling you like, well, you have to come in and meet with your manager on Mondays. Things like that.
Just kind of a stepping stone almost.
It's a stepping stone for sure.
Makes sense. So what do you think are the benefits of, say, joining a brokerage such as EXP versus, say, like a Howard Hanna?
So I think any new agent would get, it depends on how, like I'm a trial by fire person. Okay. So I would have done probably pretty well if I would have joined into an EXP under another agent, right? So if I was just under another agent working on their team as a buyer agent, I would have probably done well. I don't think a lot of people would. So having the big infrastructure like a Howard Hanna, like a Berkshire Hathaway, like a Coldwell Banker, it's good for anyone that's starting out because it does offer enough structure where you're gathering things, you're gathering information. You have other agents who are actually a little bit more kind, I guess you could say. It's less of the competition. Mm-hmm. It's more of the like, okay, here's like a couple points. Hey, do you want to sit my open house? Hey, I have 3 open houses.
More of a team weekend. Or something like that.
It's more of a team, and like it's a little bit less competitive, direct atmosphere. Whereas if you just joined like a smaller brokerage or if you had like an EXP start, you would have to be a competitor super fast, and you wouldn't have the ability to kind of like understand it and like just understand what the industry is, really.
Makes sense. So you've seen more real estate agents and worked with more than probably most people in America. Well, not probably, you have. So what's the number one reason you see people fail and just quit real estate completely?
Biting off more than they could chew. And I mean that in a very broad stroke kind of term. So financially, as a real estate agent, if you are really taking the bull by the horns, it should be your full-time job. It's hard to learn how to be a good, successful real estate agent part-time. There's plenty of people that have, but it's just hard, right? I think that also, biting off the kind of the ego thing, it is a very, like we said, it's competitive, but at the same time too, is that when you're starting anything new, you do have to just listen to the people around you, and you probably won't have the right answer. And the way that things are doing, real estate's always 10 years behind everything. Technology-wise, it's 10 years behind. Marketing-wise, it's 10 years behind. The industry in general is just 10 years behind anything that's really going on. So as a younger person jumping in there, you probably would have a lot of these cool, unique ideas, and you would share it with other agents, and they'd say, like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And you'd go,
see you in 10 years.
See you in 10 years, right? And that's what you'd hope, right? But I think a lot of people, they do go like, oh, that is a terrible idea. Okay, yeah, you're right. And then they just start the train, the negative thought train.
All right, on the opposite, flip side, what's the number one reason you see people succeed?
Again, being a good listener, really being a relatable person, and being less of the stereotypical sales people, right? Because again, remember, we're not selling things that people can just consume. Like, this is something that, like, they're only making this one purchase, and then those people become past clients. If anything, they could become referral generators. So how are you going to be able to, you could sell that first home for $100,000, but how are you going to continue to talk to that person over the next 5 to 10 years to actually have them generate referrals for you, have them actually care about you and your business and your success? And you have to be, a real person. You have to be relatable. So you have to share in their successes, which is what's good for social media. You can see what's happening in their family. You can see how their lifestyle is evolving. You can see, like, I use the classic tail in classes that I teach. If you sell a $100,000 home to a young couple, if you're following up with them on social media, you're seeing if they have a child that's born. You're seeing it when they get the pet. You're seeing them make the upgrades to the house. You're seeing them change the exterior of the house. Like, you're watching all of these things happen because people are just putting it out online. Mm-hmm. Hey, we just changed the front yard. Look at this new garden we put in. Oh, look, the baby's coming. Oh, we just changed this office to now a nursery. Or now it's an office and nursery. If you're part of that whole process, those people are definitely going to share your stuff out there. They're going to be more likely to give you a referral, to share your name with other people they know.
Or use you again when they get a bigger family, right?
For sure. For sure.
A great piece of advice. I think that's a great place to end it.
Thank you.
So, Vinny, how does someone go about finding you for your services?
So you can go to our website. It's 5ringscreative.com. You can see some of the things that we've done for some people. You can always find us on Instagram, on Facebook. A lot of people do find me through classes. So if you're taking any classes through RAMP, which is the Realtor Association of Metropolitan Pittsburgh, we do a lot of things through them. And I do typically do office tours, so you'll probably see me in one of your offices in the next year or so. That's about it.
Okay, great.
Check them out.
Yeah. For all you greedy pigs watching at home, check out 5ringscreative.com and make sure to like and subscribe.